The universe is confirmed in this vast space. There's a lot of powerful gases looking at us. The truth makes people grow their hair. Step forward, and you say no. You just need to practice to be selfless. Then you can pass the test. The intensity of black inflammation in this place, it's at our limit. Don't you worry, rest assured to practice. I will protect you. Rest assured to practice as time goes by. I still sit in a place of practice. The chicken is happy to sleep next to it. The photographer thought, just downstairs, has reached the threshold of selflessness. It's a shame to feel the change of Kim. Should be interrupted. Just find that feeling again. And then his body ignited into the fire inside. High soul of Leo Melon Regent is growing. The flower also began to move as if to bloom. The photographer was sweating like a shower. Photography is still like a locomotive. The steam is constantly spewing out white smoke. Suddenly, there's a flow of power that's coming towards the photographer. The photographer is still muttering endlessly. Endlessly hydrophobic. The power to laugh, ha ha ha. And then he runs right into the photographer. The photographer now discovered the thought. This guy's soul is trying to infiltrate my high soul. This soul is full of punishment. This soul laughed out loud, and the two photographers exclaimed, I finally met another heir. In this hellish place, stupid for how many years, I had a chance to see the sun go. Here's name Sui Dra. The photographer thought, another heir of the great Ming. He's frantically attacking my high soul. They want to steal my body. You must have despised me too much. Now the spirit of the photographer had a reaction. The man shouted a surprised sound. The soul of the sea, Barul flow, is protecting the power flow. Straight at the intruder. Name Kirha, the cold, and held out his hand against the fire, and said. He confidently said that, and closed it. High soul also uses anti-youth magic. But there's a lot of power. I'm still too young to fight me. I'm not old enough. But the bright light pushed him out of his mouth. What did he yell after? Then this sky dissolves into little soul rays. The photographer is also quite surprised. Divide the soul into different religions to avoid attack. Rules from me. This guy is hard to play. Then the regent ordered the two lovers. The tiger's spirit and love photos. Then the Kier stopped. He was surprised to ask, who are you after all? You can learn 3 types of rules. The power of combining to love spirits. The panda screamed and hit the intruder. Love also works together. The two of you go around fighting. The sound of a frantic fight echoed in high soul. I feel strongly about him. The soul wants to break. Now the intruder has the upper hand. He laughed out loud. He even said that this body is better than we imagined. He was willing to say, it will all belong to us here. Panda and photo lover were beaten for bruising. The enraged photographer shouted in the devil's head, get out of my soul. If not, don't blame me for being unkind. He asked me back without hesitation. You take yourself too seriously. Although the old man is just a dead soul, but dealing with you is enough. Photographer frowned and say, blood brothers, I want to borrow your power. So you've deployed the spirit of war. The streams of soul force turned into arrows. Kier screamed to manipulate the law. That surprised me. That's how the soul flows. Attack on that guy. The two sides crashed together. The sound of a sound. High soul of the photographer was violently shaken. The photographer's face became unsightly. Dance looks at you. The power around you is chaotic. It seems like she's having trouble practicing. I looked inside and panicked, maybe. Inside, the spirit of the intruder C is still fighting. He hit the panda. Angry panda fights back. The photographer is worried. My soul is not as strong as he is. Keep fighting like this, afraid of losing. The photographer remembered something. I search and think. My sea soul has something cool. Even we're scared. Then Leo launched out. What the hell did the intruder yell at when he saw it? The intruder risked his life waving his hand against Ra and shout out for an hour. But the Leo wire moves. Avoid this guy's attack. And it soared out. He quickly tied up the intruder. This guy is tied up and he's screaming. He shouted, "Get out of this, Leo," and he absorbed me. This guy panicked and screamed, "It's going to eat me." He grimaced and said, "No. I can only give up this body." Then he jumped out and escaped for a lifetime. Then he ran away, out of the spirit of the photographer. The photographer is very angry right now. You're chasing your soul, screaming where you're going. So he shouted, and he chased Ra all the way here. And then he found out that the dance was nearby. That is, he laughed and then turned back to the dance. The Lord said, "I am here to help you." The soul of the Kier rushed straight towards the sky. What he had pierced into the soul of the ocean. The dance immediately brought people out. Then the body loses control and falls down. The photographer hurried to catch it and shouted, "It's not okay. I thought this soul was alive. The female goddess is not our rival. We have to go in and help her." That is, the photographer's thumb just pressed against the dancer's chest. I close my eyes and focus my mind. Your soul plunges into the harmful soul of the universe. At the speed of the altar. To get inside, you say the soul of the universe is weakening. Right now, the Kier intruder is constantly fighting the Dragon Ball. This guy is constantly laughing. He said in anger, "I didn't think the old man would fall into this swamp." And then he goes and steals the body of a woman. And then he said, "I was hurt so bad." There's no way. The soul has received such damage. Not finding a new body. Will not live much longer. And then he screamed, "Go to hell." And suddenly, the regent attacked and stopped him. This guy turned his head. I saw the photographer coming and screaming, "Our goddess will deal with him." And then you keep attacking the intruder. The man chilled and said, "The bastard stopped the old man. Waiting for the old man to rise again, I want you to break your bones." The angry photographer replied, "Don't you dream." Then both of you attacked the intruder together. He laughed and split his soul into three. He said it wasn't easy to want him. Then the soul force, his way through the explosion, flying through the people of the photographer. The photographer is not okay. He flew straight to the spot of the dance. The photographer said, he went straight to the soul of the universe. I can't intervene in this battle anymore. Get out and talk next. We have to watch the two sides fight. The soul of the universe burns and dies. The photographer stood next to me worried. The spirit of Kier's soul is rising. But the dance is getting weaker and is about to disappear. After she got weak, she turned her head uneasily. The dream dance. I saw myself on the prairie. And as a child, the parents are still there. Silly people say what this is. We're on the prairie. She said the emotions of humanity are alive again. He saw that and laughed. Human affection is just a tasteless thing. You will die soon. What do those memories do? What's the use of these memories? Angry photographer says obnoxious. The soul of the universe is suddenly here. The soul of the universe is fading and dying. He laughed and said a little more. In a little while we will. Resurrection. But this guy felt the fire start again. He suddenly said, there's something in her soul. Then I saw a fire. The guy stepped back and said this was a fire. But he didn't have to wait long for the fire to start. The fire burned him. This guy screamed out in a panic. I saw the intruder screaming. In despair, the soul of the universe burns violently. The photographer said it was too hot. Quick, photographer, out of the soul of the universe. The photographer wondered what was going on. Suddenly, he would say one and then sit up. But the photographer's finger is still on her chest. You stare at me. I wonder if it's the dance or the other. She turned red and said, let me go. The photographer is itching right now. She thought this feeling must be the goddess of dance. It's a little strange. The photographer asked if he was okay. The soul of Kier Sao. She sat on the photographer's shoulder and said, death. My soul has been burned by my fire. No wonder. The photographer scratched his head, scratched his hands. I also feel like he's been burned. We continue to practice here. The dance then breathed out a breath. If you look far away, think Ra. We are not from this world. Who are we? Where did we come from? You can wait until we recover. I'm going to find out about the body for a while. I thought if there was anything to say. It was the teenager next door. I don't know how far he will go in the future. He practiced quietly for 3 days. From the world of no self into the world of no self. At the same time, it was on the 7th floor. The fire is burning on the lover's body. He's gone from 1 legend to 2. There is a mutation in his soul. He thought this was the soul. He was happy to say very well. I've reached the threshold of heaven. The owner opened his mouth wide. Sucked the black inflammation into the stomach. Black inflammation every time, more and more belly of the beloved master bulging raw. Then this guy breathed out. There was a small ironic smile on her lips. As time went on, the 10th day arrived. People in the dark inflammation tower. It's been sent out. The photographer was bewildered when he was pushed out. Where is where then? You see, I love you, and I love you. Everything was there. The photographer happily shouted, oh, everyone is here, Sao. But Nie also called the photographer. I'm happy to say, looks like we've passed the test. Suddenly, the motto called for the retreat to stop. The photographer was quite surprised to look back. A happy smile says we have met again. The photographer was then startled to say the motto. Stop asking why you are here. I didn't see you take the test. He laughed and replied, you'll know in a moment. The false gods have come so far. Smart people also show their faces. He rolled his eyes and looked in wonder. The stupid photographer who looked at the owner's name only gave 1. The photographer exclaimed, not expected. There are so many super fake powers in the domain. It's at least heaven level. One of these fake superpowers is the god of wisdom. I smile and think, maybe the false head is also among them. Say the way. The owner also waited so long. We can finally get to the Dragon Kingdom. Min spoke up to everyone, hello. I am the leader of the land you speak of. The fire is happy to shout to the manager of the area. The South guards are talking to each other. Their gas is huge. Harry looked at him and said, "He's the false master of the order." "Dance is hiding in your sleeve," he said. "I can't believe it, except for the head of the house. There are so many fake powers in this area. The rest of you have reached the spirit level." The photographer confirmed that. "Stop looking at the title and ask the title. You and the manager of the field." Happy Motto introduced Theo. "The leader of the field is my sidekick. He sees me as his own son." The photographer screamed, "It is hard to say that. Rao is the son of the ruler of the field." Min laughed again and said, "You're all the best geniuses. That we choose Ra. From now on, you'll be exposed to a new sky." He said out loud, "Welcome to the 9th floor, Neutron. This place is theirs. It's called the Shimmering World." He continued, "It's just a small part of the world. It's in your mouth. It's just the beginning. You guys are all stupid." After listening to Ra, Min continued, "There is also a star above. Long Tao dance of all kinds of scenes. You keep talking. Inside the Long Ken area, there's a lot of gods that have been around for a long, long time. Of any god. It can also be simple. Destroy all fake power in the small wiggle world. The small world is in chaos. It can maintain its current form. It's because the small world is confused. It's created by a great power." He also said that the outside cannot enter at will. The passage between the shimmering sub-world and the outside open once every 5 years. Only those who live in the shimmering world. We can go in and out at will. A happy evening said that the world of the dragon boat is interesting. The photographer thought, open once every 5 years. In my previous life, I also passed through into the Long Ken area. Min continued, "The 6 people around me are like me. Are the fake lives of the shimmering little world. He said you will become his disciples. If you want to follow them, hit on the French soul. They will take you to the land. Join the gods. Contact with the law more advanced." He confirmed, to be a great fake. Intelligent delights that hull. He told the sword, "Watch out, we're not a recruit of false captains. It's the gods." He turned to the photographer. "We're going to the SAO world." The photographer confirmed that he had to go. Then he turned. "Look at the son of a bitch over there. Then you come back," he said with a serious face. "If not a few years later, we will not be strong enough to protect the city. The owner is here with us." He glanced over at the owner's lover. "Let's talk if we don't go. If he goes back, he will destroy the city. It's just a hand lift." 6 adventurers here anxiously say, 5 years this time. But I haven't said goodbye to my parents. Reassure. Maybe God will give us time. I said before coming to Long, I will give you 3 months. To be reunited with my family. More, if you have any unfulfilled aspirations. We will do our best to help you complete it. The wise man asked the honorable. I don't know who we're going to use as teachers. We have the right to choose. Answer, no, we will be the ones to choose. Your master has been identified. If you are not satisfied, you can leave now. Finished listening. Min immediately shrunk the hose, did not dare to comment anymore. Park Zak said it has been allocated SAO, so we're going to have to split SAO. At this time, I will stop Nie and IP2 and so on. They all look through the glass. It's like petrification on the spot. You continue after the master. Your teacher. I will talk about the situation carefully. Long open the world for you. But I mentioned before. He said no matter where you are. You are all people of the shimmering world. You must not forget your roots. You are near the voice, or we will use all our might to destroy you. Finished listening, they're all scared, and they nod instinctively. Speak up, don't put pressure on the kids. Let's get started. So she points her hand out to stop him. The snow and the snow in talking about it. Look at Lin Yun, who chose her group girls. Don't worry, my grandmother. Compared to the other males that look much friendlier. Then we can rest assured. Then look at the others and think. They've already started binding the spirit seal. Take a look around for a moment. I wonder who will be my teacher. The Spirit of God for students has a certain binding effect. The same for the teacher. In the Long Ken area, once the soul is sealed, the basic relationship is very strong. The teacher assured him he would not harm his students. Just bowed to the teacher. I just thought, of course, nor will they do things of contempt and destruction. Team 6 Adventure Tell Photographer. We are brothers. Min said next, you will have 3 months to say goodbye to your family. Once the passage to the world of the dragon boat opens, you'll go to the gods. She looked at the photographer's sleeve. Aesthetic photographer, he saw the dance team. Suddenly, laughing, he said, the future 3 of you. He called me Master 3, who happily replied, yes. In the heart of the photographer, I think it's no problem. The photographer said respectfully, Master, before coming to the Long Coot area, I have a request to ask for something. The photographer honestly said, I come from a place outside the realm. Its name is Kwong Wei. If we leave the world in the dark, I hope you can protect the city. The best can help us. I know what Ra said. That's what Ra said. To Kwong Wei Sao, the human capital is almost no longer in the golden age can still exist to this day. Not destroyed by the beast. At this point, stupid people say, you thought, based only on those fake powers in Kwong Wei City, it can make the city stand strong. Until now, Sao. You keep talking. Don't worry. There's an old friend who asked me to just have me here. No one will destroy the city. The photographer said respectfully, thanks for the 6-year-old question. There is such a thing. I have been whispering for so many years. There are people who are protecting the city. The friend the sham is talking about is finally who? Looking at his back, the photographer thought. A few years later, the city was destroyed. Maybe his god's life. After finishing the sentence, run to the photographer and say, T. Everyone, I have completed the spirit seal with my master. Why do you keep talking? When you come to Long Kui area, the Lord God expects you to be more generous. The photographer replied, Lord, I must ask you to care more. The slogan laughed out loud 6 behind the thought. This person is so good. Say hello and see you in 3 months. She was happy to meet again 3 months later. Then he turned to Min respectfully said, respect, respect, respect. He waved his hand before you took the safe route. So they've all been sent out. 9 important words. When he saw that the photographer was thinking, he asked the photographer, this time we will go to Kwong Wei or not? They asked you not to go back. Next time it will be 5 years later. The photographer told us, of course, we have to go back to the old town. You said you had to go to a place your friends didn't see. Ask where. Photographer answer as a nerve bow. Back to the past. In the hot desert, a lot of people fell. Next to the animals. The photographer is breathing hard. In front of you is a dead man. Are lying in a pool of blood. The photographer stood crying. Back to reality. Tears rolling down my cheeks. When you see that, asked the photographer. What are you doing? Take your hand and wipe away your tears. Then dress down. Look at the dead man standing in the distance. You said there will always be some work in your life. There will be people who will just show up. But they leave memories that we can't erase. And we'll carry that memory for a lifetime. The photographer continued, this memory, there's no AI that can replace it. Hainan VI Mercantile Museum, Fusan Real Estate, and so on. It means that this memory can't be replaced by AI. Not even if the river runs dry. These are 2 verses in memory of his wife. He died in his heart forever. Can't forget. Sad to see you thinking. In my life, brother. It's a memory that can't be erased. Slowly, she regained her mood and laughed. Why are you saying these unrelated words? You walk faster than you talk. You said the temple is still far away. Let's go. And then we stop, and we accelerate forward. The photographer looked at Theo and sighed painfully. And IPZ and so on stared at the distance. When I saw that, the photographer asked me why. Why are you so stupid? IPZ gently shook his head. Then come back and talk. I have a strange feeling. From the moment we stepped into this desert, I see in my heart the pain. The photographer asked. IP Death replied, there seems to be a piece of memory floating through my head. She said that this memory is happy and painful. I don't know if I'm being made. This word is to make the photographer stunned. He hurriedly grabbed IP's shoulder. Hurry to ask, why did I finally remember what? IPZ suddenly replied to a very vague memory. I don't know if it's a memory. It's in my head. You also said, these short chunks of memory are we or are not. Its owner, being hunted by a bunch of animals right here in the desert. But we've never been to this desert before. The photographer was stunned. Think about what's going on. I have a memory of a previous life. Or maybe she just came back in time. I don't love Reishi. Only we have. I thought this must be a problem. Then I asked if I could remember anything else. I close my eyes and think about it. The scene came up. IP Death and so on were shy and let go of Siam. And she and Reggie started playing picture games. The red face here is shy. The next scene. The more you make IP2 and so on, then open your eyes. To see you. She slapped the photographer hard. And yelled at the ruffians. You run in, and you don't care about me anymore. So run away. Leave thousands of questions for everyone. The photographer was slapped for flipping his head to the ground. Hugging my screaming face. I didn't do anything. I think the stomach. The opposite. Before that, I took off my clothes and crawled into my bed. Who's the scoundrel? 6 adventurer here, chew mine up to ask photographer. What did you do with the goddess of death? 6 more stories, even though you 2 are engaged. But is there such a hurry? I quickly explained that we didn't. At this point, the body stops breathing. Holding my face in my head. So many images appear again. Even the body feels strange. Remember, you think. Maybe this is the inner sense of remembrance in the mind. IPZ remembered the body of the photographer. On that night. Then shame to say why SAO can be so. The photographer still looked at IP Tavan and thought. Look at that look. Maybe I remember that from before here. This doesn't make sense either. I was startled to realize, I think if death is real, recall some memories of a past life, then she can understand a little bit of my feelings. Stop coming to ask the photographer. And she was killed. Silence for a moment, and then answer. Do you believe there was a life before this? The photographer turned to ask again. Stop believing that there was a past life. Don't take yourself very seriously. Look at the child. She closed her eyes and said, I believe. The photographer looked surprised and worried. Stop talking. I've had my doubts for a long time now. You're black. She continued, sometimes standing under a tree or sitting by the window. We will give birth to illusions. You say what you've been through. It's repeated countless times, and it circulates endlessly. I said before I met you, we always fall into endless nightmares. It's all like a cycle. I dreamed that I was forced by my family to marry the Judge Cho. She then said, I'm outraged to leave. Step into a dark forest and fall into endless darkness. You said I dreamed in that forest of endless darkness. I am like a dead soul. Suffered countless tortures and sufferings. To one day, a teenager comes to pull us out of that endless nightmare. At that time, our world is black and it's light. She sadly said, from that moment, I've decided I will use everything in my life to repay the favor. The photographer is worried right now. I thought she was talking about black magic. I remember thinking, she's been in the dark forest before. There's no news. The child also has vague memories of a previous life. She asked me if I dreamed of anything else. And then I thought what she said. The previous life stopped being saved by that AI. The answer then was very vague. I can't remember anything anymore. She said there seemed to be one more thing. But the memory is not deep. The photographer said that maybe it's a fragment of my past life. In my mind, what happened? 6 on this side, don't listen to the photographer. If you really have a past life, why is there a judge? That's what the fisherman said. Maybe it's because I think a lot during the day, so it's night to dream. But right now, the snow hit the back 6 times. Made him spit, she screamed. You didn't say no, I told you to be quiet. He scratched his chin thinking of death after coming here. I've discovered some memories of my previous life. In the dream of, fish has a picture. Into the black forest in a previous life. It's absolutely not random. You fall into my contemplation. It's absolutely not that simple. Finally, is which of the great powers arranged the layout like this? Looking up at the sky, I thought maybe the meeting with the child stopped. It's not a coincidence. Death van with child stop. Our destiny is bound together. I think no matter what, I will go with you to find the answer. The first thing to do is to find out when you didn't love the letter. Time just goes by. The sun and the moon compete for space. A few days later, the people who have traveled so far on the desert 6. Photographer, the serpent you say is really nearby. I told you. The sword had been flying in the sky for days. He looked for so long and found nothing. Silence for a while, and then claimed that the SA is nearby. Let's keep looking. That's what the 6 great adventurers said. We continue to divide. So the AI is just running in for directions. Harry looked at his friends. And then I think the synapse is in my memory. Certainly nearby. Such a giant palace. There's no reason not to find it. I've been saying why for days. Not even the shadow can see. The photographer looked up at the sun. The shadow of a past life appears in the photographer's mind. The seeing when you breathe. He looked at his friends who are lying unconscious in the sand. He squinted his eyes away, his face became tired. She continued her journey alone. In the desert. The sun's rays are so strong coming from inside. The smoke rises. Inside, a shadow appeared. It's a huge palace. Li squinted and looked closely. Front. It's a grand palace. Since when did the photographer step up and put his hand on the door? Then push the door open. In front of you is a bright light. Everything is dimmed by this light. Retreat goes inside. I see a lot of relief in front of me. He looked at each statue carefully. The photographer continues to go deep inside. There's a stone pedestal in front. There's a lot of books right there. Short-handed photographer reaches for a blue book. To touch it, suddenly it's mutated. Make me startle myself. Back to the reality of still standing still. 6 friends returned and asked each other. The photographer doesn't look right. It's been half a day without a word. 6 adventure with Tae Gia Din touched the photographer. One hand held his shoulder. He reminded me not to look at him. Zach said that, I think. He's entering a different state of cultivation. You shouldn't bother him. To avoid shaking, otherwise it could lead to a ghost train. 6 hours up for an hour. Park offered to continue following him. The photographer continues to walk. He's like a dead body. Suddenly, the photographer stopped. He murmured sa conjunctiva bow. Look at the shark in front. You said what you're doing right now. 6 surprising adventurers ask the regent you're awake. It is hard to understand what you just said. Sa optic nerve looking forward. I said this, right? There are a lot of statues in front. It's smoking. It's not even intact. 6 questions, not you. Sao said, Sa magical bow, extraordinary splendor, Sao. Maybe you can only see it on the map. Or some old book. Looks like your news is out of date this time. The photographer ran ahead and said maybe. Let's go and have a look. The photographer looked around and wondered. I thought to myself, look at the weathering of these statues. This place was cancelled a long time ago. Looking around later, I thought that in a previous life, a few years later, I went to the temple. The photographer came forward and stopped for a moment. I thought, this is the location of the temple. A book is no more. Look closely, he said, considering the time without love. Where have you been? I frowned, thinking, not loving the spirit. My previous life doesn't seem to be here. It should have been in this temple. Suddenly, Li felt a shock. Then he hugged his head and screamed bitterly. It looks very painful. You see, you're worried. Call the photographer. What is wrong with you? They're all running around, and you keep calling for help. Reguli. I am so worried about asking you why. Then the photographer couldn't hear you. The vision gradually darkened and blackened. The photographer fell face to the ground. 1 month later, with the arrival of the Nebula Man. Tribal and Black Jail, Kwang Wee Kai World to develop Prosperity Hoa. In the city has arranged 5 courts of 10,000 ghosts, love spirit battle. There are other defensive tricks. Teens of St. Lan Academy. To start learning the advanced method of photography. On the top of the IP, Yan Tree watching laughed. Everything seems to be getting better. He said that Kai is quite silver and in DTO at all. So he flew away again. Then it's lost in the cloud. Special house of the owner. IP Tavan is soaking. She was worried about me and stopped taking care of me. It's been a month and the photographer hasn't woken up. She broke down and called the photographer. Suddenly, There's a call outside. IP death pattern.